A massive black bear suddenly appeared right beside the wooden fence behind the farm before dawn had fully broken. Within minutes, it tore apart several livestock feed containers before disappearing into the thick fog long before anyone could react. But what worried people most was not the damage caused that night. Huge footprints found continuously around the area for many days showed that the bear had returned many times before. It no longer wandered randomly through the forest like ordinary bears. It had begun learning how to approach the farm using the exact same trail every time, always appearing during the quietest hours and vanishing before any lights were turned on. In the mountainous regions of Northern America, wildlife control teams understand exactly how dangerous this can become. Once a fully grown bear becomes accustomed to food sources near human settlements, it will return more and more frequently. Over time, the boundary between the deep forest and residential areas almost disappears. Livestock farmers repeatedly discovered storage doors torn open, garbage bins overturned, and deep claw marks carved into trees right beside living areas. Several infrared cameras installed along the trail finally captured footage of the bear appearing in the middle of the night. It did not behave like a frightened animal. It looked more like something that had become far too familiar with the place. The very next morning, the control team began surveying the entire area surrounding the farm. They were not searching for the bear through noise or the freshest tracks. What they needed was to understand exactly how it moved. Large footprints appeared near a dry creek before disappearing into the pine forest behind the hill. One specialist quickly realized that the bear always avoided open spaces and moved only through dense forest corridors where light could barely pass through. That made direct pursuit almost useless. If the bear detected human presence too early, it could completely change its route and vanish deep into the wilderness for weeks. Instead of placing traps near the farm as usual, they decided to build a massive steel trap system deeper inside the forest. This was not the kind of trap that relied on violent force or loud mechanical noise. The entire structure was designed to resemble a natural tunnel, with dark steel panels blended carefully into the surrounding environment. Inside, they placed only a small amount of strong-smelling bait to encourage the bear to move farther in without sensing danger. Most importantly, the trap door remained fixed and inactive during the first several days. For nearly an entire week, infrared cameras continuously recorded the bear appearing around the trap area. On the first night, It simply stood at a distance for a long time before leaving. On the second night, it moved several meters closer before suddenly turning back toward the deep forest. It was not until the fifth night that the bear finally began stepping inside the steel enclosure. But even then, it constantly paused to smell the air and inspect every small movement around it. The moment the heavy steel door suddenly slammed shut in the silent darkness, the entire forest shook from a violent impact. The bear immediately lunged forward with terrifying strength, causing the entire steel frame to tremble violently. But the anchored system beneath the ground held firmly in place. After several minutes of relentless struggling, the animal slowly began to calm down before standing motionless inside the pitch-black trap, its breath turning into streams of white vapor in the freezing air. As daylight slowly emerged, the thick fog behind the pine forest gradually faded away, revealing the massive steel trap resting silently in the middle of the clearing. For many people living near the forests in North America, this was not simply a story about capturing a wild bear. It reflected the increasingly tense conflict between humans and wildlife as the boundaries of survival continue to shrink. Wildlife control teams understand that they can never completely erase the instincts of nature. The only thing they can do is try to preserve that fragile balance before both humans and animals are forced to pay the price.
If wild boars stormed into your farm every night and destroyed your crops, what would you do to stop them? For me, that was no longer a simple question. Just 2 days earlier, the largest wild boar eradication operation in the area had delivered results far beyond expectations. Hundreds of wild boars were captured within a short period of time. Massive cage traps kept slamming shut throughout the night, while the violent clanging of metal echoed across the forest. But the most dangerous ones still had not appeared. They were the old dominant boars, incredibly intelligent and always able to avoid ordinary traps. I understood clearly that if they were allowed to survive, the entire herd would quickly return. Fresh tracks continued to appear around the devastated fields, fences kept getting smashed apart, and infrared cameras constantly captured enormous dark figures moving through the night. They no longer rushed recklessly toward food the way they once had. After being hunted repeatedly, the herd had completely changed its movement patterns. They split into smaller groups, circled around dangerous areas, and only appeared at the most unpredictable times. That was why I decided to change the entire plan. Instead of placing only a few isolated traps, this time the entire forest would be surrounded with multiple trap locations. The first trap was set right along the forest edge, where a narrow trail filled with fresh tracks was still deeply pressed into the damp ground. I knew the dominant boar usually passed through this area after dark. That night, the silence felt suffocating. Only the sound of insects echoed through the thick darkness. Then finally, the massive shadow appeared. The dominant boar slowly stepped out from the bushes, moving with extreme caution. Several times it moved forward, then suddenly backed away, making me think it had detected the trap. But in one brief moment when its guard dropped slightly, it stepped a few paces deeper inside. Instantly, the steel door slammed shut with a deafening crash that echoed across the forest. The boar reacted violently almost immediately. It rammed into the metal bars with tremendous force, causing the entire cage to shake violently. The impact echoed through the darkness, making it feel as though the trap could burst apart at any second. But this time, everything had been reinforced far more heavily than before. At another location on the opposite side of the forest, the second trap quickly proved effective as well. Two wild boars appeared at the same time, moving cautiously around the baited area. They constantly sniffed the air and circled the trap several times before finally deciding to step inside. Then only seconds later, the door slammed shut decisively. Both animals immediately panicked, repeatedly smashing into the steel frame from every direction in a desperate attempt to escape. But every exit had already been sealed completely shut. The next morning, I returned to inspect the entire trap system. Even from far away, chaotic noises could already be heard coming from deep within the forest. As I moved closer, the trapped boars reacted aggressively at once. They kept charging into the metal bars, kicking clouds of dirt into the air. I kept a safe distance while quickly checking each trap one by one before handling the situation. But the trap that truly shocked me was the one near the eastern swamp. Inside was not just a few boars, but an entire herd crammed tightly together in the confined space. Massive black bodies slammed into one another and crashed violently against the metal frame, creating a scene unlike anything I had ever witnessed before. The growling, the rattling steel, and the mud being thrown everywhere made the entire scene feel more tense than ever. Only after checking every trap location did I finally let out a deep breath of relief. At the very least, the most dangerous boars had finally been brought under control. The area around the farm gradually became quiet again. And for the first time after many sleepless nights, I felt that this battle was finally under control, at least for now.
In many agricultural areas located near forests, wild boar herds have begun appearing with increasing frequency. They repeatedly move across open land and along the edges of fields. Each herd usually consists of 3 to nearly 10 boars following one another in the same direction before moving deeper into production areas. Residents witness the herds crossing fields before quickly scattering into different locations. Some herds return to the exact same familiar areas for many consecutive days, showing that they have established stable feeding routes and begun expanding their range into nearby regions. Not long afterward, the extent of the damage became clearly visible across large areas. Large sections of land in the middle of fields were dug up, leaving behind long trenches and disturbed soil. Numerous crop rows were trampled, and many areas became almost impossible to restore immediately afterward. What made the situation more serious was that the boars repeatedly returned to the same locations over many consecutive days. In areas near residential zones, lawns and gardens were also heavily torn up after each time the herds passed through. Production areas continued to suffer repeated destruction, while the range of damage gradually expanded into many surrounding locations. After identifying the areas most frequently used by the herds, trap systems began being deployed directly along the main movement routes. Some circular traps were installed in open areas to contain multiple animals at the same time. In addition, rectangular traps were placed along narrow pathways between open ground and crop fields. Steel frames were firmly secured to the ground to withstand strong impacts when the herds panicked. Trap doors were positioned in the direction of the boar's familiar movement routes to make entry appear more natural. After the main structures were completed, bait was placed deep inside to draw the herds fully into the controlled area. While the trap systems remained in position, survey activities continued constantly to monitor the movement patterns of the herds. Helicopters appeared above the heavily affected areas to observe from the air. From this viewpoint, the herd's movement routes gradually became visible between open land and crop areas that had been damaged many times before. The monitoring teams continued checking footprints, feeding grounds, and the paths most frequently used by the herds. Cameras and night observation equipment were positioned along different directions to accurately record the moments when the herds appeared and moved around the trap areas. During the following nights, the entire area surrounding the traps was continuously monitored using cameras and night observation devices. The first boars approached quite slowly, often stopping several times to observe before moving closer to the baited area. They circled around the edges of the traps for a short time before finally stepping inside. Once no danger was detected, the boars behind quickly followed in small groups. The number of animals inside the traps gradually increased after each wave of movement. Before long, many of them began pushing against one another while competing for food in the central area, causing their level of caution to decrease significantly over time. As soon as the right moment appeared, the entire trap system was activated immediately. The steel doors slammed shut extremely quickly and blocked every exit before the herd could react. Only seconds later, the entire area became chaotic as the trapped boars rushed in different directions trying to escape. Some slammed hard into the steel frames, but still could not break through the structures that had been firmly secured beforehand. In many situations, additional traps around the area were also activated one after another to prevent the herd from scattering in other directions. Choosing the correct moment allowed most of the herd to be contained in a single deployment. After the control operation was completed, the boars were kept stable inside the system before being transported away from the area. As the herd numbers decreased, the destructive pressure on agricultural areas gradually declined as well.
job, eh?
Feral hogs are not just wild animals living out in grasslands or deep forests. In many parts of the United States, especially in Texas, they have become a real ecological and economic disaster. Every year, they cause hundreds of millions of dollars in agricultural damage, destroying crops, tearing up pastures, knocking down fences, contaminating water sources, and directly threatening livestock. What makes the problem even more alarming is how quickly they reproduce. If even a small population is left unchecked, feral hog numbers can surge after just a few breeding seasons, spreading damage across the agricultural map like an oil spill. To respond to this crisis, the U.S. Department of Agriculture launched the Feral Swine Control Pilot Program, with tens of millions of dollars in funding to support the states hit hardest by the problem. Among them, Texas has always been seen as the epicenter, because it has vast open land, countless ranches, wild areas mixed with residential zones, and conditions that are almost perfect for feral hogs to multiply. But even as federal and state funding continues to flow in, the heaviest burden still falls on landowners. They have to pay out of pocket to build fences, set traps, hire crews, install cameras, and repair the damage left behind after feral hogs sweep through their land overnight. Among today's control methods, feral hog trapping is considered one of the most important strategies. Many trap systems are designed as large circular or square enclosures, wide enough for an entire sounder to enter without feeling threatened. Inside the trap, fermented corn or other strong-smelling bait is often placed for several nights in a row to draw them in. In the early stage, the trap gate is usually kept open so the hogs can get used to the area. They walk in and out naturally, feed on the bait, leave tracks behind, and slowly drop their guard. This is the most critical step, because if the trap is triggered too early, the entire plan can fail. Remote surveillance cameras act like the eyes of the control team. From a phone or tablet, landowners can watch every movement inside the trap and trigger it only when the entire sounder has entered. At the right moment, the heavy gate drops, seals off the exit, and holds the whole group inside within seconds. One perfectly timed trigger can prevent months of damage across an entire ranch.
We're setting the boar blanket up.
In addition to traditional drop gate traps, many areas also use passive net traps, a method highly valued because it takes advantage of the hog's natural behavior. Instead of creating an obvious gate that might make them suspicious, this system uses soft netting, steel posts, and tension lines to form a large enclosure. At first, the net is raised so the hogs can move freely inside to feed. After several nights of observation, once they have learned the route and no longer sense danger, the net is lowered close to the ground. Feral hogs can still push their way inside by using their snouts and natural rooting behavior, but once they are in, the structure of the net makes it extremely difficult for them to find a way back out. However, even with the most advanced traps, Texas still has not been able to fully solve its feral hog problem. They reproduce too quickly, spread across too much territory, and can survive in many different environments, from forests and grasslands to wetlands and suburban edges. If control efforts are not maintained continuously, even a few remaining sounders can be enough for the population to rebound quickly. That is why feral hog trapping is not a one-time solution, but part of a long-term strategy that combines surveillance, land management, and community coordination. The story in Texas is not just about an animal destroying crops. It is a reminder of what happens when an invasive species grows beyond control, when ecological balance is broken, and when humans are forced to respond with technology, money, and patience. Smart traps can hold an entire sounder of feral hogs in a single night, but the bigger question still remains. Can humans truly control nature, or are we simply chasing the consequences created by that imbalance?
A plate. Yeah, she's hurt a little bit. We're doing a good job, eh? I guess.
And it doesn't seem as many when you stack them tight. Yeah. But
From forests located close to production areas, wild boar herds began to appear with increasing frequency. They typically moved across open fields, field edges, and crop zones before quickly dispersing in different directions. Each herd consisted of about 3 to nearly 10 animals traveling in a fairly clear line before moving deeper into agricultural areas. Residents frequently observed the herds crossing fields both day and night. Within a short time, many production zones began to suffer heavy damage. Some herds returned to the same locations for many consecutive days, gradually expanding their range into surrounding areas. It did not take long for the damage to spread widely. Large patches of land in the fields were dug up, leaving long trenches after each passage of the herds. Rows of crops were repeatedly trampled, leaving many areas almost unable to recover in the short term. What made the situation worse was that the boars often returned to the same previously damaged locations. In areas near residential zones, gardens and lawns were also heavily churned up after each appearance. The damage kept recurring across multiple production sites, while the affected area gradually expanded outward from the original zone. As the destruction continued to increase, monitoring operations were deployed to determine the exact movement routes of the herds. Cameras and observation devices were placed around areas where footprints and feeding activity were frequently detected. Helicopters continuously flew over heavily affected zones to monitor from above. From this vantage point, familiar movement routes gradually became visible between open fields and previously damaged farmland. The monitoring team continued tracking the paths commonly used by the herds, identifying suitable locations for deploying trap systems in the next phase. After the movement routes were clearly identified, trap systems were deployed directly at several key locations. Some circular traps were installed in open areas to contain multiple animals at once. In addition, rectangular traps were placed along narrow passages between fields and crop zones. Steel frames were firmly anchored into the ground to withstand strong impacts when the herds panicked inside. Trap doors were kept fully open to make entry appear natural to the animals. After completing the main structure, bait was placed deep inside to draw the herds fully into the controlled area. Over the following nights, the entire area around the traps was continuously monitored using cameras and night vision equipment. The first animals approached the bait area cautiously and often stopped several times before moving closer. They circled the edge of the traps briefly before eventually entering. Once no danger was detected, the animals behind quickly followed in small successive groups. The number of animals inside the traps gradually increased after each continuous movement of the herd. Soon after, most of the herd began gathering around the food area, significantly reducing their level of alertness. As soon as the appropriate moment arrived, the entire trap system was activated almost simultaneously. Steel doors slammed shut extremely quickly, sealing all exits before the herd could react. Within seconds, the area descended into chaos as the trapped animals rushed in different directions trying to escape. Some animals collided forcefully with the steel frames, but still could not break the firmly fixed structure. In many cases, additional surrounding traps were triggered in sequence to prevent the herd from dispersing in other directions. After the control process was completed, the wild boar herd was stabilized inside the system before being transported out of the production area. As the herd size decreased, the level of agricultural damage pressure gradually declined over time. Many previously damaged areas slowly returned to a more stable condition. Amid the remote mountains covered with pine and birch forests in northern Canada, autumn was slowly giving way to the first bitter days of winter. During the day, the forest still held its quiet beauty, with dry leaves rustling beneath the hooves of deer and thin layers of mist drifting between the towering trees. But once night fell, the residents of the small logging camp near the edge of the woods began hearing strange sounds. Metal containers being dragged across the ground, heavy scratching against the food storage shed, and at times the massive shadow of a large creature moving beneath the faint yellow lights. The bear did not appear overly aggressive, but it was becoming increasingly bold. At first, there were only large footprints pressed into the damp soil. Then came overturned trash bins and broken wooden fences. The people living near the forest understood that if the situation was not handled quickly, the animal would gradually grow accustomed to human food sources and become even more dangerous in the future. Local authorities soon contacted the wildlife management team to organize a safe capture operation. Unlike the harsh methods commonly used many years ago, the control team chose a more cautious and humane approach this time. Their goal was to capture one specific adult bear that had repeatedly returned to the residential area, rather than disturb the entire wildlife habitat. Infrared cameras were attached to tree trunks, motion sensors were placed along the trails the bear frequently used, and all data was monitored continuously throughout several nights. As they reviewed the footage, the team realized the bear was extremely intelligent. It usually appeared close to midnight, avoided brightly lit areas, and always paused for a long time to observe its surroundings before approaching any food source. On one occasion, it detected the metallic scent from an old trap and immediately turned away. That discovery forced the team to change their strategy, minimizing all traces of human presence and placing the trap in a more natural-looking location. A large cage trap was set up near a small stream deep in the forest, where many fresh footprints had recently been found. Inside, the team placed honey, berries, and dried salmon, scents that were highly attractive yet still natural to the environment. Before leaving, the staff covered the trap frame with pine branches and forest soil to conceal any remaining metallic smell. That night, cold winds swept through the treetops, filling the forest with endless rustling sounds. From the monitoring screens inside their specialized vehicle, the control team watched the massive figure of the bear slowly emerge beneath the dim moonlight. It moved carefully, occasionally standing on its hind legs to sniff the air before lowering its head back toward the ground. The animal's caution left the entire team watching almost breathlessly. The bear circled the trap several times before finally approaching the entrance. It hesitated for a few seconds, its eyes constantly scanning the dark forest around it, before eventually being drawn in by the scent of food. The moment its entire body entered the cage, the sensor instantly activated the closing mechanism. The steel door dropped firmly yet smoothly, avoiding any loud noise that might send the animal into panic. Immediately afterward, the control team moved in quickly. Maintaining a safe distance, they used soft lighting to avoid agitating the bear while performing an initial health check. The animal appeared tense for the first few minutes before gradually calming down. After being lightly sedated, it was transported to a protected reserve dozens of kilometers away from the residential area, where natural food sources were abundant and the risk of human contact was much lower. The following morning, the logging camp was quiet once again. The large footprints around the fences had disappeared, and no strange sounds echoed through the night anymore. Beneath the pale morning sunlight filtering through the mist-covered forest, everything seemed to return to its proper place. The bear continued its life in the wild, while the people learned once again that protecting communities and respecting nature can exist side by side when guided by responsibility and understanding.
Bears rarely appear with loud sounds in the darkness of night. They usually approach human living areas quietly, almost without leaving clear signs at first. The first clues are often large footprints pressed deep into the damp soil behind houses, slightly shifted trash can lids, or long scratch marks on wooden food storage doors. These signs appear sporadically, enough to notice, but not enough to trigger immediate caution. Owners often dismiss them, assuming it was just a passing visit. This complacency allows the danger to develop silently. Over time, the level of danger becomes more evident. Bears no longer appear only at the edges of the area, but move deeper into human living spaces. They approach livestock pens, food storage areas, and the backyards of houses. The frequency of appearances increases each night, instead of remaining occasional. Under sensor lights, they still move slowly, but no longer keep a safe distance. Familiarity with the environment makes their behavior more bold. The risk of direct encounters becomes increasingly clear, placing continuous pressure on residential areas. The appearances are no longer random. Bears begin to memorize exact locations, food is available, and follow fixed routes. Each return occurs at nearly the same time, forming a stable cycle. Deterrent measures gradually lose effectiveness and are no longer sufficient to prevent them from coming back. The atmosphere becomes increasingly tense as signs of activity grow denser each night. It becomes clear that this is not a temporary phenomenon, but a repeated pattern forming a long-term threat. But a decrease in natural food sources in the forest forces bears to expand their search range. At the same time, residential areas provide more easily accessible food, such as waste, crops, and livestock feed. Their highly sensitive sense of smell allows them to detect odors from long distances and identify resource-rich locations. Once successful in finding food, their return behavior becomes reinforced and more frequent. This is a survival response to environmental change, gradually shifting bears from random searching to fixed feeding habits in specific areas. Observation is conducted over many consecutive days to accurately determine bear behavior. Footprints, claw marks, and night vision cameras are used to track their familiar movement routes. Areas with high appearance frequency are mapped and evaluated in detail. Based on this data, trap locations are selected with precision rather than randomly. Cages are firmly anchored to the ground to avoid detection. Bait is placed deep inside to lure and attract bears, ensuring they fully enter the controlled zone as planned. The bear returns along its familiar route in the darkness of night. Drawn strongly by the smell of food, it enters the trap area without the caution it once had. Each step takes it deeper inside, and the distance to the exit gradually disappears completely. Once it reaches the central position, it becomes contained within the trap and can no longer retreat. Its reactions become chaotic, but cannot break the prepared structure. In a brief moment, the entire area is confirmed safe after the bear is successfully captured. After the situation is brought under control, the area gradually stabilizes again. However, the risk may return if food sources are not completely removed. Control depends not only on traps, but also on environmental management. When living conditions change, behavior changes accordingly. Maintaining a safe distance between humans and wildlife is essential to reduce long-term risks and preserve ecological balance.
Big.
Across America's vast farmlands, wild boars have become a nightmare for thousands of farmers. With massive muscle, razor-sharp tusks, and an almost uncontrollable breeding rate, they cause more than $2.5 billion in damage every year. From Texas to the southern states, enormous herds tear through cornfields, destroy irrigation systems, and smash fences apart in just a few nights. Even worse, they are becoming smarter and adapting faster to nearly every control method humans throw at them. First, many people believe hunting rifles would solve the problem. But it didn't take long for the boars to change their behavior. They began moving later at night and almost vanished whenever they heard unfamiliar sounds. After hunting efforts failed, many control teams turned to leg traps hidden deep in the woods. Some animals were captured successfully, but the method quickly revealed its biggest weakness. It only caught individual boars while the rest of the herd kept breeding and destroying farmland. That forced control teams to move towards systems large enough to contain entire sounders at once.
Whoa! Yeah, big. Big. Yeah. No big.
These giant circular traps are reinforced like steel vaults. Because once the gate slams shut, hundreds of kilograms of muscle come crashing into the metal frame in total panic. A fully grown boar can easily bend steel tubing or break weak welds if the structure isn't strong enough.
Ooh, they moved my pin around. We want to put the rest of the screws.
That's why every bolt, hinge, and connection point has to be heavily reinforced. For control teams, keeping the entire herd inside matters far more than capturing only a few isolated animals. But success depends on far more than the trap itself. Location is everything. Wild boars usually follow fixed travel routes between dense forest cover and open farmland. Control teams track footprints, mud wallows, and torn up ground to locate what they call the herd's invisible highways. Choose the wrong spot, and the boars may disappear from the area for weeks. In many cases, understanding movement patterns becomes even more important than the weapons themselves. Once the location is confirmed, the baiting phase begins. Dry corn is mixed with old beer, spoiled milk, and fermented fruit to create a powerful scent capable of traveling for miles through humid air. The bait is scattered in trails leading deeper and deeper into the trap, so the herd slowly becomes comfortable with the strange metal
strawberry
structure
jam left to rot for 5 days.
in the
The
middle
stench
of
carries
the
2 miles.
For days, sometimes weeks, the gate remains completely open. No lights, no sudden noise. Just absolute patience to convince the herd the area is safe. Then the final moment arrives. As most of the herd moves inside, cameras and motion sensors immediately alert the control team. Within seconds, the heavy steel gate slams shut. After a brief moment of silence comes the chaos, screaming, flying mud, and violent impacts shaking the entire steel frame. Response teams have to move quickly before the herd breaks free or destroys parts of the trap itself.
Alright, guys, we.
AT, the processing site. Every animal is checked for disease before the meat enters production. Unlike mass-produced industrial pork, wild boar meat is often handled more carefully to preserve its natural quality. The dark red meat, lean texture, and distinctive flavor have made it increasingly popular in high-end restaurants. For some chefs, it represents a raw, untamed taste that commercial pork simply cannot replicate. But that's where the paradox begins. The more people crave wild boar meat, the more economically valuable these animals become. What was once considered an ecological disaster is slowly turning into a profitable food industry. And in the middle of this ongoing battle, one question still remains. Are humans truly protecting the ecosystem, or simply turning another part of nature into business? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more survival battles between humans and the wild.
Get on that trailer. Get on the bus. Yep. Yep.
No one truly believed a wild boar herd that large could exist until the cameras captured the entire scene. After last week's feral hog control operation around my farm, things had finally started to settle down again. The fields were no longer being torn apart every night. The fences were no longer being smashed down, and I began to think I might finally get a little rest. But then an unexpected phone call dragged everything right back to the beginning. At my uncle's farm, hundreds of kilometers away, another herd of feral hogs had started appearing in growing numbers, and the destruction was even worse than before. Huge tracks stretched across the fields. The ground had been ripped open into massive patches, and the crops were nearly wiped out after only a few nights. What worried us most was that these feral hogs no longer seemed afraid of people. They were showing up even before dark, moving in large groups as if they had become completely familiar with the land surrounding the farm. We decided to deploy the traps that very same day. The first trap was set along the edge of a pine forest, where the heaviest signs of movement had been found. This time, I chose to use a net trap instead of a steel cage. With large herds constantly on the move, the net trap felt more natural and far less suspicious than a fully enclosed steel frame. After scattering bait around the area, the entire team quickly pulled back to a distant observation point. We barely had to wait long. As the evening light began to fade, the first dark shapes emerged between the trees. One by one, the wild boar stepped out cautiously, sniffing the air nonstop before slowly moving toward the bait. At first, only a few smaller hogs entered the trap zone, but before long the entire herd came flooding in. They shoved against each other searching for food, completely unaware that the netting was already surrounding them. Only when an entire herd suddenly turned around did the real panic erupt. Piercing squeals exploded to the forest as they slammed violently into the netting in search and escape, but every exit had already been sealed shut. The next location was an open field far from the edge of the forest. With no trees for cover, the herd became far more cautious. They kept appearing in the distance before disappearing back into the darkness. We were forced to leave the trap active overnight. The next morning, when we returned to check it, several wild boars had already been caught inside. The moment they noticed people approaching, the entire herd instantly went berserk, crashing into one another in desperation. But the thick netting was soft enough to absorb the impact, while still strong enough to hold them completely in place. In the western woods near the farm, we tried a different type of trap. This one was a massive steel cage with a front entrance covered by such simple netting that it barely drew any attention at all. Ironically, that simplicity was exactly what lowered the herd's guard. Drawn in by the smell of food inside, they followed one another into the cage without realizing the entrance only worked one way. It was only when they tried to turn and flee that they discovered the way and had already become the perfect trap. By noon, we checked the final trap in the southern section of the forest and were shocked to discover that most of the animals trapped inside were piglets. They crowded together, constantly running in circles within the cramped space, creating a chaotic scene unlike anything we had seen before. This was no longer just about catching a few animals destroying crops. It was proof that the entire herd was reproducing at a terrifying rate. Once the operation was over, the hardest part finally began: moving each animal from the traps onto the trucks. The tight spaces made them more aggressive than ever. The sounds of violent impacts, pounding footsteps, and relentless charges pushed the situation to an extreme level of tension. When the final truck finally pulled away, the area surrounding the farm slowly returned to silence. Standing in the middle of the freshly cleared field, I realized that while the adult hogs could be controlled, the appearance of the young ones was a true sign that this cycle was only just beginning.